Hello and welcome to IASPrimers. My name is Shubhashish and you're watching today's daily news analysis. Now, as part of our initiative, I always share questions for mains answer writing practice, which you can get them evaluated. So we'll come to that. So today, first of all, we have an interesting question on the ethics case study. So as you know, some religious processions took place, and because of that, across the country, not just in the Jahangir Puri, which we are referring in the news, but across the country, there have been incidents of communal clashes or riots also. So here I have a case study. I believe I have seen number of times that ethics case study is inspired from the real world events. And when you're writing your answer, when you will write your answers, naturally we all have common sense, and common sense says that we should prevent the crime, we should have we should have community engagement, all of this. So some steps have to be taken. Now what we are doing today is, as an exercise, I have the guidelines given by the Ministry of Home Affairs on communal harmony. So I want to prepare this. I have jotted down the key points. It's a 25-page document. So jotted down the key points from there. But if you wish, you can actually refer to that. I'll share the link in the description box as well. So this exercise I want you to do from the case study point of view. 250-word case study is there for you. Okay. Now you can get these evaluated. As I said, it's very simple. Write your answers on pen and paper and share it with me as a PDF. It's a single file basically, because if you share multiple files, it becomes very difficult for me to annotate or make the text marks or write comments. It becomes difficult. In a single file, it is easier. That is the only reason. Okay, so this you do and share it with me on my WhatsApp and Telegram. You can personally ping me also, just share the file. I'll revert back to you in 2-3 hours or by evening the latest. So this you have to do, and my details are there in the description box. The first line of the description box has my number. So there you can find me. Okay, so let's move on to the first news. So Ukraine war has hit India's bid to move away from coal. So this is a statement that is coming from Finance Minister at the Atlantic Council, which is a think tank. Right. So it says that India's priority is to move away from coal. So you should think as to why do we want to move away from coal. And the reason that has been given is that price of natural gas, a transitional fuel, has gone up. It is in short supply. So why do we want to move away from coal? Then comes to the aspect of natural gas. Isn't natural gas polluting itself? It's carbon ultimately. So greenhouse gas emissions will increase. So global warming will increase. And why? So this is one thing that you should consider. Then you should know as to what is the Atlantic Council. Right. So these are the two things that you need to keep in mind. And whenever we look at the climate change issue or something to do with that, we always refer to the commitments that India has made to the world as to what contributions it is going to make to curtail the issue of climate change. So what is going to be India's contribution? So here it is. So one by one. So India's bid to move away from coal. Why? Because coal releases twice the amount of carbon dioxide relative to natural gas. Fine. For same amount of energy that is being created, so twice the amount of carbon dioxide is coming out of coal over here. And I think we have studied this in geography also. There are different types of coal: anthracite, bituminous, right? So different types of coal. So ours is more polluting in any ways. Okay. So from coal, we want to move away to natural gas because it is less polluting. So it is seen as a transitional fuel. Okay. In fact, Europe actually considers this a green fuel also. Okay. So natural gas, it is not that it is not contributing to climate change. It is just that coal is polluting much more. And where is coal used, by the way? Coal is used in the power plants, and about 80% of India's energy is coming from the power plants, which are, it's coming from the thermal based power plants which run on coal. So we want to move away from them. It is a stable source of energy. We may have renewables, but renewables do not supply a steady stream of electricity. We can't have 24/7 sun rays, for instance. Okay. So that is the issue. So about 80% is coming here. Then other industry is iron and steel for that carbon we need for that purpose. Okay, so this is there. So natural gas has become more expensive because of the war that is going on, and short supply from Russia has been curtailed. So that is a problem over there. Now talking about Russia, we have the United States of America, which is putting pressure. This summit is going on in Atlantic Council, which is in Washington DC, and naturally we would be meeting the US people also. And the US has imposed sanction on Russia and on any country on trading with Russia. So they say that please don't buy natural gas from Russia or any source of energy from Russia. We are imposing a sanction. We are trying to put economic pressure on Russia so that they stop the war. But you're buying things. So in this context, our energy imports is about 1 to 2% of the total. 1 to 2% is coming from Russia. So this is as per US data itself, right? So this thing is also done. Now, what is India's commitment with reference to the climate change? So as per the COP26, which is also known as the Glasgow Summit, we were supposed to intensify the commitments that we had already made in the Paris Summit, also known as COP21. And as per this, we had promised that by 2030, so 8 years from now, 50% of the energy that we consume. So we believe that by 2030 we will need 1000 gigawatts of electricity. So of this, 50% will be renewables. Now there is no mention of solar, by the way, so be careful. But as per our experience, as per at least my experience, I see it is 60% or 2/3. So 2/3 is 66 or 67% is solar. So typically that much, and we are a tropical country, makes sense, right? Rooftops, we can have solar, this thing. Okay, so we are done with this also. And by 2070, if we do this, the government believes that by 2070 we can be carbon neutral. Now moving on to Atlantic Council, this is for prelims. So Atlantic Council, as I said, it is based out of Washington DC. It is a think tank. Now this is, UPSC can ask you, like, Atlantic Council is option A, intergovernmental body, an agency of the United Nations, agency of the US, NATO group, like that. 4 options can be given to you. So it is a think tank. That means nothing to do with the government in this case. And as it says Atlantic Council, it means Atlantic Ocean, countries along the Atlantics. So US, it's a US-led initiative, by the way. So advocating constructive US leadership in the world alongside friends and allies. And Western Europe, European countries, we see them as an ally of the USA. I didn't find the membership of this group, but we have the Indian finance minister talking. Okay. So this is there, shaping the global future together. That is the theme of the Atlantic Council, and it has been in force since 1961. When you go to the website, it starts with since 1961. Next article, if freebie culture persists, India may face Sri Lanka's fate. I think I have said this a number of times that this scenario of Sri Lanka is a very good example of why we need a stable macroeconomy, why we need to focus on the fiscal deficit or the current account deficit. So if we are not able to manage a fiscal deficit, that is, the government is spending more than what it is earning. So that means the government is borrowing, and ultimately that borrowed money has to be returned. But if you're not generating as much revenue, typically coming from taxation, then in that case, the government will go bankrupt. It will not have money. It will not have money to give salaries or run the government. It will go bankrupt. And the same applies for the current account deficit, where we are basically exporting, where we are importing more. So there is net outflow of money from the economy than what is coming inside the country. So that is not sustainable. So current account deficit should not be very, very high. So, right, so these are the 2 things that all countries focus upon. In fact, in our scenario also, since it's talking about India, our fiscal deficit at the moment is around 6.9%. I believe it is much more, but the government says it is 6.9%, and the next year the target is 6.4%. In fact, this is the target 6.9%, and then moving on to 6.4% by selling the LIC stake. Okay, 6.4%. How does it matter? Well, the FRBM Act, Fiscal Responsibility Budget Management Act, it says that a healthy fiscal deficit, and N.K. Singh committee report, which was to review the FRBM Act, that also said that a healthy fiscal deficit is around 3% of the GDP. And where are we? The twice as much, more than twice actually. So it is not a good thing. And when you have more of borrowings, naturally, when you borrow money, you borrow the principal amount, you have to pay the principal plus the interest rate. Interest keeps increasing. In fact, one of the significant contributors of fiscal deficit are actually the interest payments. In fact, I have the analysis on the budget video also. Okay, so this is not a good sign. And one of the biggest contributors of the fiscal deficit is the high subsidy payout. So the government is spending more subsidy or more revenue expenditure, and ultimately that is not good. So here the person, Niti Aayog member, is talking basically at some summit, and he's saying that the farm subsidies are at an unsustainable level. And he says there has to be some level that yes, we cannot go beyond the subsidy level. He says we are breaching that beyond level. Actually, we are going beyond what we should be spending. So he's giving one example of the MSP. So MSP is what? MSP is when the government pays money to the farmer for whatever they produce, right? So minimum selling price, MSP. So minimum price that the farmer would get for the grains, and the government buys grains. And typically these are above the market rate. Market rates are lower than this. Theoretically it should not be this way, but yes. So the money comes to the farmers. So that's this kind of a subsidy. Okay, because the gov is more than the market rate. So it is to incentivize farmers to increase more. We have more production over here. But he says that if we are spending 1,000 rupees, if we're giving 100 rupees to the farmer as MSP, we are also giving 35 rupees that is required for production. For example, the farmer needs credit. The farmer needs credit to buy raw materials, etc. Then subsidy on fertilizers. So those are things that the government is already spending. So you're spending here in terms of MSP, then in the farming time also you are spending money. We also have this direct income transfer, Kisan Yojana. So we are already spending money. So this is unsustainable. Somewhere we need to have a check on that. Okay, so this is there. Now this is just for the farm sector. Subsidy is much more than that, right? So I have some indicators that I feel that you would be requiring. So as per the government, as per their budget itself, so the center has rationalized the spending on subsidies, keeping it as 3.17 lakh crores for the year 22-23. For this budget, it has been rationalization of subsidies, and it is at 3.17 lakh crores, as against in 21-22, which was at rupees 4.33 lakh crores. So the government is focusing on rationalization of the subsidies. 2016, a question was also asked on prelims only. Okay, so this is the idea that subsidies should come down. Now, the farm subsidies, it is believed that it is a significant contributor towards the overall subsidy expenditure. So farm subsidy is about 2% of India's GDP. Now, to give you a context, India's health spending, especially on public healthcare infrastructure, that is around 1% of GDP. So about twice as much is going to the in form of farm subsidies. Right, so twice as much. Okay. Then if you look at the overall breakup of subsidies, then education is the highest contributor, that is at 21%, followed by agriculture, which is at 12%. Now this is quite interesting. Agriculture is given at 12%, then irrigation is at 11%. Where is irrigation used? In agriculture itself, so 23%. And even in the power sector, the farmers in the rural sector, they don't have metered connections. So bulk of that electricity that goes to the rural sector is actually subsidized electricity. So that also should have been included. So power sector is 9%, bulk of which is going to the farm. So here again you can see significant share, even though that segregation is done, it will not reflect, but farm subsidy is quite significant over here. Right, so these are certain things. So you have a brief analysis on the subsidy as well. Now moving on to the concept of 19th Amendment with reference to Sri Lanka. So let me give you a brief background. So Sri Lanka was being ruled by British, like India. So when British left, the parliamentary system was adopted, like in our case. So parliamentary system, and what happens in the parliamentary system? We have the Prime Minister, who is the heading the government, and the Prime Minister or his executive is answerable or responsible to the legislature. Clear? This is there? Okay. And typically the bills will go, or the president would be the nominal head. Now, there is this 19th Amendment. In this Sri Lankan context, the president was also very powerful, and the 19th Amendment was introduced to clip or reduce the powers of the president. So we don't want two power centers, to clip the powers of the president. But in 2015, Mahinda Rajapaksa, who is presently the Prime Minister of this government, he was the president. And he diluted the 19th Amendment, and by diluting it meant that the president became all the more powerful. Prime Minister was from now on a nominal head. So Prime Minister was to be a nominal head, but President was the one who was actually having the power. So 19th Amendment was diluted. Under whom? Mahinda Rajapaksa. So for him, when it was convenient, he did this. Now he is the Prime Minister. New cabinet, he is the Prime Minister over here, and all this problems are taking place in Sri Lanka. They are saying that the president is responsible, he has the powers. Ultimately, he was governing everything. So he is at fault. Right? He says, yeah, absolutely. So one of the steps that we should take is that president's power should be reduced, and the powers should go to the Prime Minister. It should be collectively shared between the people. But it is to his convenience, actually, if you look at it this way, because Mahinda Rajapaksa is now the Prime Minister. But I think that is not my agenda over here. Basically, what is the 19th Amendment that you should know with reference to Sri Lanka. And the other thing is, another amendment that is often in news in the context is the 13th Amendment. So 19th Amendment is associated with which of the following? 19th Amendment of Sri Lanka. So 4 options, and then 13th Amendment. That is not referred in the article, by the way. So 13th Amendment, India says to Sri Lanka that you should implement the 13th Amendment. So 13th Amendment is basically is with reference to the Tamil issue of Sri Lanka. So this is Sri Lanka, and my drawing is like this. Northern part is Tamil dominated. So what we are saying is that the Tamil provinces should be given greater autonomy. There was a civil war also that took place. So Tamil people should be given greater autonomy. The culture of the Sinhalese should not be imposed upon the northern provinces, which is dominated by the Tamils. So that is what they are saying. In fact, we have a video on this amendment also. So the LTTE crisis or the Tamil crisis on our channel. Now comes the case study question. Here is the question for you. So, but let's do this first. So, no religious procession without nod, right? So, this is in context of the Jahangir Puri, where there was a mosque and the people procession was going on, and something happened. There was a lot of a clash. So, he says that, see, in Uttar Pradesh, a lot of things can happen. So, if any procession has to go, then it has to go with the permission, right? So, permission has to go, and it should be only where. And permission also should be granted in those cases, because the environment today is not very good, where traditional processions were going on, only those should be permitted, right? So that is there. Now you can look at this also. We were always like family. Everything used to be normal, but at this moment the situation is very, very bad, and typically it is people with vested interests who create this uncertainty and tensions amongst the people. They, especially during the election years, we have more incidents of clashes. To be honest, that is the case. One of the movies also said that, I think a remark of the court also actually, that you see the calendar date when you see more incidents of riots, so you can check the calendar and election is near the corner. Okay, so that is so extra information, superficial thing actually. We are more interested from the ethics point of view, case study. So in ethics we have two parts: A is the theory part B is the case study. So this incident is taking place many across the country. So now you are a district magistrate of a riot prone area like that of Jahangirpuri, and there is an imminent possibility, in past also it has taken place, so there is an imminent possibility of riots and communal clashes between two prominent groups of the areas, communities actually, I wanted to write communities here. So two prominent communities of the area, especially in light of religious processions. Religious processions will go, Ram Navami is there or some other festival is there, or so religious procession is taking place. One may move from the community, the residential houses of the other community, and I think it's very obvious which two prominent communities I am referring to. Also, there are dominant local leaders who have vested interest and have attempted to stoke communal sentiments in the past. Right, so political leaders are there, which you really can't. So those people are there, those people in position of power. You are the DM. The situation is very, very tense, and you have to manage. You have to prevent the crisis in the first place. So prevention is better than cure. So first prevention, and then if it happens, then what steps need to be taken for that also. So as the district magistrate, what course of action would you undertake to normalize the situation? Justify your views in 250 words. Right? So course of action. Nobody is asking you what steps can you take, option 1, option 2, option 3, then merits and demerits. No, only course of action. That is, you give the stakeholder analysis, you briefly explain the situation. Right, case study has a lot of big story actually, but I don't want to give that. Okay, so you give a stakeholder analysis of the people, of the community leaders, how is it bad, all those things you give, a brief stakeholder analysis to present a case, and then state the steps that you need to take. Right, okay. Now I refer to the guidelines on communal harmony. I went to this Ministry of Home Affairs website, so there I found this. And it was a 25-page document, half of which is about the index and then personal policy, administrative. From there I have identified few points. Now if you wish, you can always read this. In fact, you can just, I think, type guidelines on communal harmony, you will get it easily on the Google also. So first thing it says is, we have to identify the areas where the tension is there. Right, so those areas, and in those areas we should ensure that there are police stations and adequate manpower. Right, so police station should be there, adequate manpower should be there, so that if anything happens, they can take corrective measures. If they spot some people who are trying to create tensions, they can be taken to task. Then information gathering, information and intelligence gathering. And by the way, this also first level for police station, for a police station or anybody to gather information, it is the constables only, because they will be going out, they are in the society itself, so they can see what all is happening. So information and intelligence gathering. So many places, like in the case of Aklak also, whose house people had attacked, right, for this conspiracy of having beef in this house. So there also initially that announcement was made on the temple. So announcement was made that such and such thing has happened. So please collect over there and attack this person. So such things, such sentiments or such tensions can be seen by these people over here. Okay, then religious processions plus loudspeaker is seen as typical reason. This, the guideline itself says, so religious procession plus loudspeaker, the issue of loudspeaker and trying to agitate the other communities, saying certain things that will create tensions. So these are seen as typical reasons. Right, so this has to be regulated, and here we have the regulation being done with reference to the religious processions. Now I said temples, that could be with any other group also, mosque also, anywhere, somebody who wants to create tensions. In Jammu and Kashmir we hear references of mosque also. Okay. Next is the formation of peace committees or Qaumi Ekta committees. Qaum, religion, Qaum, community. So community Ekta committees. So that should be formed, and they should comprise of the local leaders. So in groups they can be sensitized, so that normalization of relations can take place. Because police is one thing. Police can just manage law and order, it can have information, provide security, but it is ultimately the people who are agitating. And when we refer to the political leaders or any leader actually, any leader who is creating this tension also, so in that case also, what they are trying to do is agitate the people. So people have to be managed. So peace committees or Qaumi Ekta committees. Then for the people or for the procession that is going on, or for the organizers, there should be a code of conduct. Then undertaking from community leadership, right? This is there. You have to ensure that things do not go bad, or from these people also, that see, we know about all of this, you should not do this, engage in all of this, otherwise we will take you to task. Then regulate carrying of arms, firearms, etc. Check rumor mongering. So these are certain steps that have been mentioned in the guidelines on communal harmony. Okay, so this is it. So this you have to bring out. And now moving on to the next one, that is the government ad on new railway manufacturing investment. So I've just taken that brief thing over here. So 20,000 crores. So Gujarat's first and India's fourth production unit of railways to manufacture locomotives. So all these things are there, upgradation of technical skills of railway staff. But I'm more interested in the thing on the right side, because it tells us about the priorities of the railways or some new initiatives that are coming up. So we have equipped with digital tracking system. Then Kavach. I hope you remember the budget also announcement was made for Kavach. So train collision system. So stopping the trains from colliding, Kavach. Okay, if you have a difficulty with recalling, you can always watch a video also on Kavach. It is there on the net. Just type Kavach, you'll find some video randomly. It will help you. Then use of green energy and green manufacturing tags. So manufactured with the use of green energy, that has been recommended. In fact, one of the tasks was that we have to reduce the dependency of diesel powered engines and move towards electrification of the railways. Then reduction in the logistic cost and decongestion of saturated tracks, right? So this is again a problem which the railway faces. Then logistic cost, we have one of the highest logistic costs in the country. It is around 14% overall, if we look at the overall logistic cost, not just of the railways, while in case of China it is around 8%. So in developed countries 5 to 8%, in our country it is at 14%. So when we want to focus on the ease of doing business or India being attractive for investments, logistics, the cost of moving one thing from the other, it's a significant contributor of cost and therefore undermines competitiveness of that sector or of that country. Right, so these are the things. So government reflects initiatives and measures of railways. Likewise, quite interesting actually. So this is with reference to the Delhi government. So Delhi government, with reference to education, now they have hobby hubs where co-curriculars will be promoted, like dance, music, theatre, photography, with the help of admins, individuals, NGOs, to set up hobby hubs in Delhi government schools. Now I was thinking education, pedagogy, like how can we use this? So few weeks back actually there was an article which talked about the education system that is causing the issue of poverty of imagination. In fact, the Prime Minister also, Niti Aayog, has started with the Atal Tinkering Labs to tinker the mind of the students. So poverty of imagination, somewhere these co-curriculars, these creative components help in developing the overall personality of the child. Right, so one-sided view of academics or school education. So we are having this other perspective also. So it will inculcate creative skills in youth. And this also includes coding if you look closely, coding and languages also. So in our different domains, not just being academic centric, book centric, physics, chemistry, maths, commerce, traditional this thing, no. Beyond this, we are moving with which people like, which children like. And when children like what they do, when they go to the school, we will have better enrollments also in the school. We will have better learning outcomes also. And if it will be best if academics and this thing can be merged together with the hobbies. So learning outcomes. We are seeing compatibility of academics with co-curriculars. Right? So these are good signs, some things that you can actually refer in your answer writing somewhere you can fit in this point. Okay, now opinion section. Yes. So victims say this is with reference to the Lakhimpur case actually. So Lakhimpur incident. So the analysis of basically the editorial that I discussed, it's the same thing. Then an honest reckoning. India must get experts to independently investigate excess deaths. So when did excess deaths happen? With reference to the COVID. And no government will actually do this. Excessive deaths took place in India. Also underreported the deaths that have taken place. Okay, so that they must do, which this says. Revisiting India's federalist ethos. Right, I haven't read this only, but yes, this is with reference to the governor. Then we have the issue of NEET also, NEET examination, education policies. So there were some other issues here. This I have not even focused also. So now we are not interested. Demolition drives violate international law. Right, we have some references where the majority, the people affiliated with the ruling party and agitations took place, as the demolition drive took place. It was the allegations that it is being targeted at one particular community. Right, so that is being deferred. So what are these international laws? So these I have mentioned over here. So Article 25 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which has actually inspired some of our fundamental rights also. Okay, so it says everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and the family, which includes roti, kapda, makan, food, clothing, housing and medical care. Then your homework is you have to read this extra. Okay, International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. So right of everyone to have a standard of living for himself, same thing over here. Then the High Commissioner for Human Rights or UN Human Rights Office to promote and protect the human rights of guaranteed. You're breaking somebody's house, even if it is illegally constructed, it is seen as a violation of human rights. I took this article, by the way. Okay, a coal crisis hit again. That means there is going to be scarcity of coal. We are having the summer months. We need more energy demand. ACs, etc. will run. So coal crisis is back again as a problem. So something needs to be done. We need to find an alternative the soonest possible. And yes, one more article, unwarranted delay. Governor's silence is not sending the bill to President. This must be Tamil Nadu. Right, so again, federal issue. India should focus on reducing cost of doing business. So, cost of doing business and setting the time to set price distortions right. In very short, I'll explain. So, price distortion we are having with farm laws. For example, I refer to the MSP also. So, when the government buys things at MSP, now let's say the market price of a grain was 1 kilo of wheat was 8 rupees per kg, but the government is spending 16 rupees. MSP 16 rupees, that means the market price is now at 16 rupees. Simple as that. So the raw material cost is increasing. Agriculture is not just food, it is also providing us raw materials. So raw material cost increases. So this is required by the consumer who will be working as a wage earner in the factory also. So cost of living increases, or industry which needs raw materials. So it is a price distortion by whom? The government. Now there is adequate rationale for why do we have MSP. That's a different story. Likewise, it refers to the pricing distortion in petrol and diesel. I think we all know about this. Petrol, diesel is at 100 plus levels. Now this thing has also taken place, the Ukraine war. Okay. But it says that, see, the taxes are very, very high on this. Even if we have the maximum GST rate of 28%, then also the fuel prices, according to him, it should be at rupees 60 per litre. 60 per litre. And where are we at? Right? We are at a very, very high level. So almost double of this. So 50, 30. Yeah, and around 50, 60, almost twice as much as there. Okay, 70-80%. So if we have this, if the fuel prices are increasing again, we are affecting the competitiveness of anybody who's doing business in India, right? And if somebody wants to invest in a country, they would say, see, raw materials are very expensive in your country. It's very expensive to do business. So in ease of doing business also comes the cost of doing business, right? So that is not attractive for the country. Then it gives an example of the real estate sector. So it says that, see, we all know, I think if we buy a house or any property, it's very, very expensive. But if we give the same on rent, it says it is around 2%. So about 2% we are getting it from the rent. So cost of capital is very, very high. And these are all price distortions that needs to be rectified. Otherwise, our economy will not be competitive. Now, your homework from prelims perspective, ease of doing business, you know it is from the World Bank. Which all are the other components of the ease of doing business? Some guidelines are there, some criteria is there, so that you have to identify. Panopticonism. I didn't check the pronunciation. Panopticonism. What is this? So simple. I don't need the article here. Okay. So it refers to a situation. No, this is like a jail. So if you feel somebody is watching you. Now in the jail, if you feel somebody is having a watch. So this is an architectural structure, which means panopticonism. So if from center somebody can have a surveillance on you, this is for the prison. Now in the same way, it says that in our country or in the present day state that we are in, all our data is being taken, Aadhaar fingerprint is being taken, mobile location services are being taken, those cameras are there. Even if the camera is not working, somewhere it will affect the psychology that we are being watched. And when we are being watched, it will affect the way we conduct ourselves. So this phenomena of us believing that we are in a state of surveillance will affect our behavior, even if we are not, but we feel we are under surveillance, right? So this is it actually, right? So I just wanted to share the meaning of this. It was there in the explained section, the keyword panopticonism. No need to read all this, right? So this is it from my side. Bye bye, take care, and all the best. Bye bye.